Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 240 of Putin's invasion to Ukraine, with Olexiy Arestovych, Lieutenant Colonel, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Friday, October 21st, 4 minutes past 10, and we're doing our usual stream, day 240 with Olexiy Arestovich. Glad to see you, Olexiy. Good evening. Alright, we have over 175,000 people watching us live. 33,000 of you clicked the like button. Thank you, friends, for spending the end of the week with two guys like us and listening to our chat here. And of course, thank you for your time. Do not forget to subscribe. Yeah, well, Arestovich is a more serious guy, but anyway, thank you for subscribing. Please click that button, click that bell, and subscribe to Olexiy Arestovich's channel as well. All the description are down below, and also if you are watching or listening to that in English, subscribe to the Privateer Station. Alright, let's start with what happened on the front during the last 24 hours. I think there were quite a lot of events, especially on the south. On the south? What events are there? Okay, map to the studio. We see it now. Let's start with the left bank of Oskol on the east. No, not left bank of Jordan. Not Jordan. Well, that's, remember, Soviet times, every evening. West bank of Jordan, Israeli militants. That's been the usual USSR news video every evening. My dad told me a story that after they learned about the Israeli victory in that Six-Day War, he and his friends went and got drunk. Mark, I think there is a special place in paradise for people like me because to repeat every day that not many things changed, but still repeat what is going on. Well, you are creative. You can find a way to make it very different every time, right? Here's the problem, Mark. When I'm in my theatrical personality, I can be creative. When I'm here, I'm in the military personality. There is no creativity here, not too much wiggle room. Okay, looking at the map, you see the blue side, the blue color is what we liberated. The not colored piece is the battle zone, the gray line, and the red line, the red color is Russian occupied territory. The main intrigue there was if we capture the road that's somewhat on the Russian red-colored side now. But due to the circumstances, we did not. And we decided to capture tactically better positions to fend off counterattacks that we're facing there. They're small, they're 2 platoon sizes, but at a time, but still. So reservists and the mobilized, they're changing the situation on the front. Not really, but even if you have 400 AKs that are shooting not exactly at you, but in your general direction, that's still somewhat of an issue. So they cannot repeat what we have done when we liberated this territory, or they cannot go and capture more towns, but they can stand and hold the line more or less. I'm sorry, I'm tired today. Our current proportion on the front is about 1 to 6, 1 to 7 in casualties. So roughly what we are holding for the recent period of time. They're very afraid of our army over there and that it can proceed forward and cut the road and capture Svatova and threaten Kremenaya as well. But frankly, we don't have too much resources to do that. If we had our own industries supporting us, that would be one thing, but we are getting munitions and armor shipped from our allies, so we basically have to aggregate all these goodies and then once we have enough, we use them out on the liberation effort and counterattacks, and then after they're used, we basically come down and wait for more of them to get restocked. So further down in the south, it's the same situation where they send a detachment, we shoot them down, half of them remaining alive falls back, next day they repeat that again. If you go look down south, in Bakhmut, they somewhat shifted their efforts to the east and southeast. Before that, there was a bit in the northeast as well. Most part of their efforts is on the east, and they're trying to pick it also from the bottom a little bit. So from Zaitsevo to Happy Valley and Ivangrad, that's where the main effort is right now. Let's go down south further, Gorlovka, Marienka, towards Donetsk. There are some attempts to try to catch, one side catches other on the mortar fire, UAVs, not too much active actions happening on the ground. And yesterday, when we were completing the show, there was a good shelling at Pavlovsky Bridge and managed to hit Russian correspondents, as they claimed. These guys, there were some strange correspondents. Yeah, there was in the news that some correspondents heroically died on the bridge, on Pavlov Bridge. Local guys said that, yeah, this is a Russian propaganda channel. And our command made a statement from the southern detachment, southern group of troops. Peaceful people could not have died on this bridge because we were shelling during the restricted time. They implemented military time, so civilians cannot be outside after a certain PM hour. So we were doing our military operations after this hour. So if they were out, they are not civilians. War is war, right? You know, don't hang out in the zones of war. So the command of Russian side, they're still discussing Russian military correspondents and the propagandists. They're generally discussing that the situation on Kherson is still bad. They're losing step by step, and since the beginning of October, they lost up to 80 populated settlements in Kherson region. 80? Yeah, for the whole area. That's what is the current stats. I'm reading in their public forums. That's what they're counting. Is there some exaggeration, or maybe a trap, or maybe we don't understand when Kherson can fall or can be taken? Again, the evil tongues. Oh God, I remembered another anecdote about evil tongues, but it's too dirty. Even for me, I lose my courage talking about that. Mark, sorry, I cannot talk about that. The thing is, we have not crossed the fork of events. They have not been determined yet. So we see that indeed they are throwing still support on Kherson side, the mobilized, and not just mobilized. They added a little bit of, even a bit of a cadre military on that side. So visually it doesn't appear that they're preparing to run from Kherson area, or at least it looks like there is a regrouping effort with unclear goals. So there was no counteroffensive there right now, and there were 2 romantic days when all their fake administration and FSB people were leaving. That was interesting, but military-wise, they were still reinforcing. So you think there is some sort of additional game there? Luring you in there? No, Mark, I don't think it's a game. Luring us where? If we had enough force to take Kherson, we would have taken it now. No, maybe luring you that they're too weak, so you would still go. Mark, our intel is, unlike Russian intel, actually works, and we do know the real situation there. How many detachments and what they're doing, what's going on, and not what we're being told from a TV. Okay, then let's talk about the dam, because that's another point in the discussion. What do you mean dam? Novokakhovskaya dam? The one that was announced that they put explosives there? Well, first of all, we don't know if they indeed do that, and they did plant the explosives. Okay, so let's imagine they did. They blew it up, the wave is going down, left bank will be flooded, locals will suffer, and Russian troops that are retreating will suffer. After that explosion, the river will tear away or flush away all the pontoon bridges they built. So that means that they will cut off everybody who is still maybe remaining on the right bank from any possible supply line. So that scenario makes sense only if they withdrew everybody, ran rather far away on the left side where the flood will not reach them, and then they blew up the dam. For what? They're accusing Ukrainian side that Ukrainian want to blow the dam up, to shell it and destroy it. Yeah, that's too much damage for themselves. It's much easier for us to grind them out and then use the bridges or use the. Yeah, it's kind of doesn't make sense to explode it, to blow it up. I did talk yesterday that with one of the guests, and I also got messages in my mail. Some people related to employees of the dam that flooding will not be a cakewalk. It will be a serious flood wave, and perhaps it might even reach the right bank as well. That it will be on the right and on the left. Then I have another question. What's the reason to do that? So when they said they planted explosives, do they plan to explode it fully, destroy it completely, or just destroy parts of it? Are these explosives real or they're fake? Because they could have put fake explosives and said, hey, be afraid, be afraid. That could be additional mean of controlling enemies' behavior and confusing their plans, which, they're trying to do to us. So all that is, I don't know. I think there probably are real explosives there, but there's still too many questions left. As an element of blackmail and information intimidation, since Zaporozhye nuclear power plant didn't work, let's try the dam. Remember, before the war, they were scaring us with Chernobyl. They always look for some catastrophe, Mark. They always bring up something, hey, this time there'll be 20,000 civilians dead, or there'll be a flooding or another catastrophe. They seem to be moving from one catastrophe to another because they are a catastrophe themselves. Imagine if there would be any war in Europe and the French would be telling Germans that, hey, we'll invent one catastrophe per month that will be killing tens of thousands of civilians. Right? That's a weird story. Okay. Let's switch over to Belarus to cover all the actual military preparations there to clear the picture. Do you feel the escalation of situation from Belarus side? Or is it just our worries? I feel serious preparation for escalation, but there is a known distance between preparation and to the point when you are ready to fulfill tasks. And then the second step is even having that group battle ready up there doesn't mean that it will be used. It can just pose a threat, and that may be its function. But they are aggregating there on all sides. They're aggregating both infantry and air support and artillery. You know what? What I'm concerned here is that they never move things for nothing. Last year, they moved their troops to the border of Ukraine and Belarus, and one of those times, the second time, they actually entered Ukraine, right? Now they're saying they have about 9,000. You told us they need about 20, 30,000. I think whenever they gather, reach that total amount, and I believe it's doable for them. What's the reason for them to aggregate them up north? They could have used them in the south or in the east. And since they're doing that on the Belarus territory, given even the Lukashenko's behavior and all, they do want something. So, what can they want, Mark, that we haven't seen yet? We understand what they can want. They want to invade and go to Kiev region. So, this idea is being actively discussed in all the publics and all the forums. That's why I'm bringing it up, because if everybody is discussing, the threat stops being scary. Who is being afraid, Mark? We're not. Well, it's not even about the physical fear. It's more analyzing of possible plans of the enemy. Well, we analyze these plans, Mark. For the second month, we already have military exercise singing Brivey. It's a bird. So, yeah, we've been exercising that with military, police, territorial defense. We're ready. You know, and I still keep bringing it up because I hope Lukashenko one day will turn on his YouTube and see us and say, why the F do I need that? Well, he said that already, that they don't need war. Well, yes, he said that, but he also said that they will. Mark, you understand that Belarus people don't need war, right? I do understand that, but he's talking about war also not because of his own volition. He is being pushed to. Mark, Belarus people do not need war. Are you sure? Yep. Then the factor of presence of Russian troops that look very occupational on the Belarus territory. Do you think they may instead occupy Minsk instead? Well, Belarus is occupied since at least 2016. They constantly have Russian military presence there on a rotational base. And what do they want to achieve there? Topple Lukashenko? I don't think that's coming. Perhaps we don't know something. Right, perhaps we don't know, but then why do you aggregate troops on the border with Ukraine? If you want to topple Lukashenko, you can aggregate closer to Minsk, not closer to our border. Well, Belarus is not too big of a country, and Minsk is not too far from the border. Well, we'll see, Mark. All right, we have over 300,000 watching us. We've been live for 18 minutes. Please subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. If you are listening or watching that in English, do not forget to subscribe to the privateer station. Another story. Let's talk about UAVs. I had a really good stream with Julia Latinina. She is not a military expert, or technical expert, but she, as a good journalist, went deep into researching the circumstances and details of the case. So she researched everything about drones. She actually does it in a very detailed fashion, better than 9/10 of military experts that I see in the media sphere. So yeah, she did talk a lot about Iranian drones. She recorded a lot of her conversations with different experts and aggregated that for you, so you don't need to dig that. I'll defer you to that interview with Julia. She came to a conclusion that these drones basically they're called Shahed, very similar to the pronunciation of Shahid's belt. They're not designed to hit military targets, but their main designation is destruction and terrorizing of civilian population, civilian targets. Because on the front, they are just incapable of dealing enough damage. So, what do you think about Ukrainian capability to fight Iranian UAVs to resolve that issue? We're discussing it daily, so people are asking it in chat a lot, and I think you could dispel some of the concerns here. Yes, but there is a nuance. We cannot disclose all details about our readiness and preparedness to fight drones. There is a piece of news that was officially published in Germany that Ukraine got the first radio location station for air defense system Arestovych. German manufacturer Ingersoll. 4 more systems will be supplied in the next coming months. These systems are capable to detect and classify different aerial targets, including small, fast maneuvering, even cruise missiles, airplanes, helicopters, flying and hovering. They can detect up to 1,500 targets in up to 250 kilometers radius. So even one locator like that is a real good input for our targeting systems. And early detection is an important, crucial part for successful shooting them down. So they will cover our skies. And just these things will provide a good umbrella for our protection. By the way, I'm adding here that we'll continue drones later. I sorry for distraction here. I see another note that Zelensky signed a decree about volunteer pathway for women to participate in the military. So once again, volunteer is an important part. Yeah, there was a campaign here that said that everybody will be drafted, including women. And that campaign was instigated from Russia, from their propagandists gang. Okay, so going back to UAVs, you think that in the near future, you guys will find a good solution for the drone problem, for the UAVs? Yeah, Mark, there is never a situation when one weapon is eternally successful. There's always a continuous struggle between sides. On the drone matter, they became rather successful temporarily. We are shooting them down in numbers now, and in some reasonable time frame, we'll cull that threat, and it's curious what they'll do later. Perhaps they're relying on scary Iranian missiles, surface to surface, but it doesn't really change stuff for us. It's the same Iskander-type missiles. Formally, it's about the same. Okay, I got you. Let's wait how that situation changes. 23 minutes we've been live, a little more. Over 415,000 people watching us. Again, please share links wherever you can in your social media. Make sure your friends see us. Make sure those people who, if you have anybody at risk of being drafted by Putin's regime, send it over. I cannot say it's a flood wave of them, but definitely we see increasing Russian presence among the viewers. And it starts to show that they're apparently stopping to believe, rather, they are propagandists. They're actually turning to other sources that are not screaming everything is wonderful and will win, but the ones who are telling them about different ways they'll be returned back home, if they will be returned back home. So let's talk about other things. Elon Musk continues his Twitter saga. He commented today, I think today, right? Today or yesterday? I think it was last night. He commented on Medvedev, and Medvedev posted a tweet. I think it was written for him, but he tweeted about Liz Truss, who was briefly on the post of Prime Minister of Britain, and he compared her with some lettuce or whatever. And Musk responded saying that's quality trolling there, and then asked, so what's up near Bakhmut? Some people understood that as a compliment towards Medvedev, and Medvedev, being an idiot he responded that he is waiting for Elon to come celebrate victory. Which victory? When? No details on that. But regardless, that is attached to the news that American administration is discussing access to Starlink comms inside Iran. And another news was connected to that Minister of Defense of Ukraine continues to work closely with Elon Musk's companies in Ukraine, where Musk is still taking that position that he will be subsidizing and use of the Starlink system for Ukraine military. So, can you tell us, do you think Elon smokes these days? Did you ask me if he smokes? Well, I think he is trying to find some median between two very different poles of his worldview. How was that system formed is a big question. But he has it, and it is inspired all these lengthy tweets about nuclear weapons and all. He got some feedback. He understood that he perhaps over-accentuated certain elements of his worldview, and he's trying to find a new balance in it. Being a businessman, he also is looking for a way to minimize risks, minimize damages, or perhaps even gain some profits from it. So it's a picture of statement. Wrong statement. I'll rephrase that. You misunderstood me. And step by step, eventually, he'll probably settle, I hope, one day with a position that he will continue helping, right, that he was always supporting Ukraine since his childhood and that he hates Putin's regime with his guts. So you think he is drifting to that direction? Okay, it seems like that. At least in his public rhetoric, what he feels inside, where he drifts to inside. I found my way. He's between drifting and being afraid and drifting into fear. So, yeah, regardless, he is still one of the richest people in the world. He owns huge assets and he can afford to discuss his ideations publicly. Okay, another topic that is being present in the media, and we need to address that, the property is seized and frozen, of Russian property is seized abroad in the country's allies of Ukraine. Austrian Chancellor stated that it needs to be discussed how to use that seized property, and they're starting to discuss because Ukraine needs to be rebuilt, money needs to be paid, and who else is in a better position to fund that than the aggressor? So look what I discovered. One of the commonalities for the West, to my surprise, they accepted 4 points of victory for Ukraine, and that is what is constantly present. So first, punishment of Russian troops, or full defeat, or throwing them out of Ukraine. Second is economic reparations at a cost, sponsored by Russia. Third, punishment of everybody involved. And fourth, dethroning, toppling Putin. So if the West includes that into their strategic planning, they start thinking about how can we use, which funds can we use to compensate Ukraine for this war, to compensate their expenses for supporting Ukraine. So obvious is using Russian seized assets. And taking property in the West is not a simple procedure. It's not so easy. So a good thing is doing that in a legal manner when it is adjudicated by court, because if you do that by decree, that there'll be a blowback. But if it is done outside of the judicial system, that may lead to a lot of unintended consequences. So the cleanest solution likely will be through the court. I'm not sure if it is the best way, but frankly, however they do it, as long as they do it. Do you think they will? Of course. I think so, because how else? You start a huge continental warfare in Europe, you get it to the brink of nuclear threat to the world, you blow up gas supply lines, you blackmail everybody with explosions and floods and other things. This is one of the cases of a little wisdom that was popular in the Russian military, Soviet military back in the day. Oh yeah, I know that one. If you spit at a collective, they'll wipe their faces off. If the collective spits on you, you'll drown. Yep, that reminds me of another one about evil tongues, but it has also the presence of clit, so I'm not going to talk about that. So another piece of news that we're discussing is setting a frame, a top price for Russian oil, Russian energy, carbohydrates at $60 per barrel. I think it's a lot. I think that's a very good price. Even 50 would be good for them. Yeah, I think it's a reasonable price. It's definitely over the cost, probably twice over the cost, so I don't understand Russian side being pissed at that. So what do you think? Do you think that decision has a good perspective? Has some future? Because in the current situation, they should be happy even with this 60, because, it can be dropped down to 10. Yeah, I think they will eventually settle, and the price indeed has to be somewhere in that frame, because it does include logistics, transportation, a lot of other activities around that supply. So Russian side, in my opinion, should be happy. The other thing is they will not be able to get super profits from that. And that solution, for the most part, is aimed at culling the possible destabilization of the market due to Russian actions or other countries friendly to Putin's regime, including Iran, and trying to preclude harsh jumps and fluctuations in the price of oil and gas, because Russia was always on the boat rocking it. And also to preclude Russia getting super profits from this industry. So these are good tools. These are as effective as they come. By the way, to catch up with the previous news, I'm keep reading other things here. Leaders of European Union assigned a task to a special commission to research and figure a way to transfer assets into monetary values. How you like to say, Mark? Who will pay for that? You will pay for that. Turning to Russian viewers of this, yeah, they don't like listening to that. They're saying it's impossible. They're still in disbelief about that, but yeah, they will pay. There's another layer to that story. You know that most of oligarchs, the big ones, the juiciest, the biggest ones, they actually started court proceedings in different countries trying to fight the sanctions. And there is already a wave of decisions coming denying their claims, and they're now starting to feel the hurt. And oh, by the way, in Ukraine, the National Security Council, supported by our president, added 3,600 Russian people to the next sanctions list, Ukraine sanctions for now. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's an important one. Abramovich is now a part of that list. He was spoken about that he's doing some good for Ukraine, but he's conditionally on that list. And I understand as long as he continues helping to liberate Ukrainian prisoners of war, he may still have some favors. So they voted. It's 3,600. It's a rather big list, and everybody's there, from bureaucrats to known oligarchs and functionaries. This is a precedent, and it will become the basis for making a similar appeal to the international bodies of Europe and states to include these 3,600 into their lists. Here is the basis, here are the supporting documents, and we, as the main interested party in that problem, we request you to review that list. One thing is when some third party is doing that, and they're always looking at Ukraine wondering what do Ukrainians think. And this time it actually bubbles up from Ukraine, and this, I think, has a better perspective of being adopted. All right, 36 minutes we've been live. Almost 435,000 watching us live. Over 140,000 of you clicked the like button. Please do not forget to share a link. And one more thing I wanted to talk about. This question is from chat. Okay, people keep asking, why did information about Bayraktars and their application kind of disappeared? So they're implying, right? You understand what they're implying, that Turkey may be thinking that all Bayraktars are destroyed. Maybe Moscow found a way to leverage them out of the battlefront, and Turkey is not supplying them anymore. No, everything is good with Bayraktars. Andrei Yermak had a very successful visit to their factory a little bit less than a month ago. Everything is good with them, we're just not pointing them out. What do you mean? Well, they're not bleeping in every second message saying Bayraktar this and Bayraktar that. They're working, we're using them effectively, we're just not accentuating that matter. Is there a reason for that? Well, let's put it this way. Given that Turkey is an intermediary with prisoners of war exchange, I would start thinking in that direction. And these interdependencies. Okay, interesting. Thank you. There is another news in the media today that in Ukraine, grandson of Robert Kennedy participated in the conflict on the Ukraine side. He is 27, 28 years old. Okay, I'm reading it. Kennedy, grandson of Senator Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy, relative of John Kennedy, the president. And he, undercover, basically without informing anybody, he says there was only one person who was aware of his decision. He served in Ukraine. When he learned about Ukrainian International Legion, he knew that he would join, and he went to the embassy on the next day and conscribed to that detachment. Now, direct quote, people I've met in that legion were the bravest people I've ever known. My pals and legionnaires came from different countries, different ideological backgrounds. They were real fighters for freedom, many of which who had lost everything in their fight against oligarchs and oppressive regimes. This is not a fight between equals, this is a revolution. So this is a very American-style post, and it's not just anybody, Joe Schmo fighting on the Ukrainian side, right? Yep, I'd say that's another serious event. And now he likely is back, and he'll be a good supporter of Ukrainian cause. I'd say we had a lot of people fighting in International Legion. We had a lot of people from South America, from Southeast Asia. We actually had a lot of people from South America who were fighting great We still have them in in this legion. They were fighting, and they basically wanted to revenge for all the Soviet funding of all these commies and socialists in the southern. So that is the right wing, right? Coming, helping. Oh yeah, definitely right. Definitely more of a conservative side than the commie socialist side. They really performed well in the fights for Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. It was hard there, but they were strong. So what's the number of that legion? How many people are? Thousands. 1,000? No, I would mark thousands. Plural. There are many of them. And there are many of them are fighting? Yes, many of them. They're going through a usual rotation. Some are training, some are fighting. They're in a usual rotational practice. Because in Moscow, they had a thesis that in disguise of volunteers in this legion, there are cadre military, instructors, specialists. Oh, you mean the ones who are on vacation? So, yeah, Russians can partake as vacationers in the military events and nobody else can? Well, yeah, right. They'll read Kennedy's post now and say, "Ooh, the Harvard alumni was there killing our compatriots." Well, what do you want? If you declare the war to the West, if you shout from every bucket that you are fighting the West, you can see, you should expect some of the Americans taking that seriously and saying, okay, well, if you are fighting the West, I'll come over. And that result of that warfare is rather predictable. An interesting discussion about patriotism is unfolding. There are people who are saying, don't even think about it. Since 2014, don't even go and capture anything in Ukraine. This is the dumbest idea. I remember myself back in 2014 screaming in the Russian media, remember, people of Crimea, what are you doing? Why are you joining Russia? We're living here in prison. Why do you want to join our jail? Ukraine is your only way to freedom. Well, life teaches everybody their own lessons. So now there is no sentiment about that. You cannot talk with sheep in any other fashion. Oh yeah, this war dispelled a lot of stories. There's no naivete left. And the harder the whip, especially if it has metal balls on the end, then the better it is. Especially for my fellow Russians. You try to convince them that, hey, you will be killed there. Don't kill others and don't go there. And now there's another story. Sberbank, an IT guy, manager from it, Raiffeisenbank. He's the major operator of Russian payment system Mir. So life model is 10 days, right? He was conscribed, he was mobilized. He is 33 years old. In 10 days, he's dead. What for? 33 years. What for? What the heck were you doing there? What the heck were you fighting for? Was an IT guy, no more IT guy. Okay, we'll leave other topics for tomorrow. One last thing, people are asking for an anecdote. I'm not going to bite. I'll show you another thing. You probably will not hear it due to technical things, how we have it set up. But this is Mark Solovyov. There was an Odessa congressman back in the day. People will understand why we're showing him. It's a 30-second clip. Technical issue. Mark's stream is experiencing a technical glitch at this moment. Hang in there, the video will come up shortly. Here it comes. Alright, so I may be wrong, but I do understand that if anything happens, all of us will be executed. Nobody will save and spare our lives. So each of us needs to continue fighting and correcting things. I hope these conclusions will be made and corrections will be made to our mistakes in the front. But once again, if we do not change the system that was stealing and robbing the country for 30 years, we cannot win. So, did you not hear it, probably? If they come, they will execute everybody. Let's not let them do that. Yeah, we'll be executed summarily together. Right, and who do you think will be putting them to that wall? That one, that deputy, that ex-congressman knows who will be executing them. I'm sending him hi from here. Do you know another one? Another little joke? So there is one more. It's Friday. So Western Ukraine, I'll speak Russian, and one guy is carrying a prisoner from one of the armies of the world without actualization. So, and he is carrying him full deep in his thoughts. So where are you taking him? To the forest. Oh, I want to work him up a little. Why? You can just shoot him here. No, I have time and I have inspiration. So this thing that has no relation to actual practices, but yeah, as an anecdote. That reminded me of how Afghan Mujahideen, their own saying said, we made him live long. All right, we'll talk about things tomorrow, 10 p.m. Come join our stream. At 1 hour before that, we'll have, by the way, a guest, Ahmed Zakayev. He's head of Republic of Ichkeria, Chechnya, as an occupied territory. Ukraine recognizes that as an occupied country by Russian Federation. So it'll be probably another interesting stream. And of course, 10 p.m. Olexiy Arestovich will follow. See you then. See you tomorrow.